The original paintwork is much better than that on many modern Japanese and European-made cars, thanks to which the caliber body is not so quickly covered with chips, scratches, and perfectly holds sandblasting. As for the corrosion resistance of the metal, in general, the body has good protection against corrosion, however, there are still a couple of weak points here. The thresholds begin to rust most quickly under the onslaught of reagents. It is worth noting the low quality of the metal from which they are made, thin and soft. Also, the front fenders give up quite quickly. The plastic from which the bumpers are made hardened and becomes more brittle with the advent of cold weather. Quite often, Dodge Caliber owners blame the reliability of the gas tank cap lock, which painfully endures severe frosts. If the lock grabs in frost, there is a risk of it breaking. Another problematic area is optics. Firstly, in rainy weather, it fogs up, usually the back. Secondly, in order to replace the lamps in the headlights, it is necessary to partially dismantle the bumper. But the biggest trouble is that if a lamp failure error in external lighting and signaling devices is knocked out on the tidy, it is not a fact that after replacement the new lamp will work. The fact is that this error is recorded in the control unit and needs to be deactivated. It is worth noting that the error can only be removed at a specialized dealer service or at a service station that has a branded Star Scan diagnostic scanner. Of the operational shortcomings, unsuccessful body shapes can be noted. Because of this, when driving through slush or mud, the doors and their windows get very dirty. Customers can choose from 3 naturally aspirated gasoline engines with a volume of 1.8 liters, 140 horsepower, 2.0 liters, 150 horsepower, 2.4, 170 horsepower, and 1 turbocharged 2.4, 285 horsepower. In Europe, diesel car modifications were also sold, which are very rare for our market. Until mid-2010, a 2-liter VAC engine, 140 horsepower, was installed, and after 2.2 CRD manufactured by Mercedes. All gasoline engines are a joint development of Chrysler, Mitsubishi, and Hyundai, and are well known to fans of Mitsubishi Lancer 10, Hyundai Sonata, and Kia Cerato. A reliable metal chain is installed in the timing drive of all units, which does not need to be replaced up to 250,000 kilometers. Of the common problems of Dodge Caliber gasoline units, the unreliability of the throttle assembly can be noted. Often on a run of 100–150,000 kilometers, it needs to be replaced. A new original part is not cheap, about $400 USD. You can save money and take an analog, about $200 USD, but as a rule, the service life of such parts is half that of the original ones. The engine mounts are also considered vulnerable. The rear is the fastest to give up, and the crankshaft pulley damper fails after 150,000 kilometers. Quite common are cases of leakage of antifreeze through the thermostat unit. 2 thermostats are installed. On a car with a mileage of more than 200,000 kilometers, there is a high probability of failure of the fuel pump and exhaust manifold. Also, on older cars, you need to monitor the condition of the crankcase. It is covered with rust. On some cars with a 1.8-liter engine, after 150,000 kilometers, the crankshaft liners turned. Fortunately, this problem is not widespread. At the same run, there is a risk of scuffing on the mirror of the engine cylinders. However, it is worth noting that this ailment more often befalls owner who ignore the maintenance periods for the unit prescribed in the regulations or pour anything into it. The disadvantages of a 2-liter engine include the presence of extraneous sounds during the operation of the unit, diesel, chirping, hissing, etc. Most of which are a feature of the operation of the unit, injectors and fuel pump. The reason for the appearance of vibration at low speeds, up to 1,500, is often faulty spark plugs. After 100,000 km of run, you need to regularly monitor the condition of the catalyst. Usually it serves 100–150,000 km, and if it is destroyed, immediately change it, otherwise its dust will get into the cylinders and cause scoring in them. This unit does not have hydraulic compensators, therefore once every 90,000 km, for cars running on gas every 35–45,000 km, it is recommended to adjust the thermal clearances of the valves. The most powerful engine in the line, 2.4, is an enlarged version of the 2-liter engine with a large piston stroke. This unit uses the same system for changing the valve timing on both shafts, and there are no hydraulic compensators, and the ailment are repeated 1-to-1, extraneous sounds, noises, knocks. Transmission. For the Dodge Caliber, only 3 gearboxes were offered: a 5-speed Magna drivetrain D355 manual installed in tandem with a 1.8-liter engine, a Jatco stepless variator, and a 6-speed manual gearbox, which was paired only with diesel engines and with the top 285 strong engine. No matter how strange it may sound, but the most problematic is the mechanics. Often after 150,000 kilometers of run, it needs to be repaired. Shaft bearing and synchronizers are the fastest to give up. The problem is manifested by increased noise of the gearbox. Also, the clutch release mechanism can be attributed to problem areas. But the clutch itself can last more than 150,000 kilometers, but its replacement will be quite expensive, about $300, since it only changes when assembled with the basket, made as a single unit. The JF011E variator has been successfully used on many car brands. This unit is able to serve without expensive repairs for about 200,000 kilometers, but only on condition of timely maintenance, regular oil and filter changes, proper and most important, careful operation. Due to the constant friction of the cones and the belt, a large amount of wear products of these parts, metal chips, gets into the lubricant, which accelerates the process of destruction of the oil pump elements and solenoids, so experienced servicemen recommend changing the oil at least once every 50,000 kilometers. During operation, avoid prolonged movement at high speeds over 150 km per hour, monitor the condition of the coolant radiator and warm up the transmission in the cold season. The variator is warmed up as follows. After a short engine idle, at least 5 minutes, while holding the brake pedal, it is necessary to move the gearbox control lever several times from the drive to reverse position and back, through naturally. Of the weak points of the variator, the reliability of the step motor, the part responsible for adjusting the gear ratio of the variator, can be noted. Most often, the foot that controls the position of the cones breaks in it through the load valve. Shaft bearings are also not famous for their reliability, the failure of which can lead to critical wear of the cones. Therefore, it is very important that when a hum or howl appears out of the box, immediately contact the service for diagnostics. Of the less significant troubles, one can note the rather rapid wear of the splines joints of the planetary gear couplings, and the package of its friction clutches is also short-lived. Another variator can get sick due to problems with the wiring. Reasons: the wiring harness is frayed in the area of UT100B, the left wheel, the contacts of the plug connector are oxidized. Independent suspension, front single-lever McPherson type, rear multi-link, is well adapted to our operating conditions. This allows you to confidently move on roads with poor quality coverage. The suspension travel is enough to comfortably overcome shallow pits and potholes. But off-road, despite a solid ground clearance of 195 mm, it is better to overcome it as carefully as possible, since the suspension pretty taps when driving over bumps. As for the reliability of the running gear, it must be admitted that it does not differ in endurance. Traditionally, for modern cars, the stabilizer struts and bushings are the first to be delivered. On average, they nurse 30–50,000 kilometers. Also, steering tips can be right into the weak points of the Dodge Caliber suspension. Their service life rarely exceeds 70,000 kilometers. Closer to 100,000 kilometers, most specimens require replacement of shock absorbers, thrust and wheel bearings, ball bearings, and silent blocks of levers. External CV joints can last up to 150,000 kilometers, internal ones up to 200,000 kilometers, change complete with drive. The rear suspension elements last a little longer. So, for example, stabilizer struts can last up to 80,000 kilometers. Shock absorbers and silent blocks of levers, depending on operating conditions, take care of 100–150,000 kilometers. If you do not slow down when driving through the pits early enough, after 50,000 kilometers, it may be necessary to replace the brake-up levers. When replacing them, you often have to deal with short bolts. The steering system uses a rack and pinion mechanism with hydraulic booster. The reliability of this node largely depends on the driving style of the driver. For some, the rake is rented out without having served even 100,000 kilometers. For others, it takes care of 150–200,000 kilometers without problems. The power steering pump starts to make noise closer to 250,000 kilometers. The brakes are reliable and do a good job with the tasks assigned to them. Interior. Selling Dodge Caliber impresses with its spaciousness and ergonomics, a large number of glove compartments, pockets, and all kinds of niches for small things, a wide range of seat settings. Special attention deserves the transformation of the cabin and a refrigerator that can feed 4 cans of cola. And everything would be fine if it were not for the poor quality of finishing materials. Most trim elements are made of very cheap, not to say terrible, plastic, which eventually fills the interior with all sorts of sounds, creaks and knocks, especially in winter. This problem is aggravated by not the best build quality, due to which, over time, extraneous sounds begin to make pedals, peeling door seals and door glass. They creak when lowered and raised. Also, the mediocre sound insulation of the cabin can be attributed to the disadvantages, so installing additional Shumkov will not be superfluous. As for the reliability of Dodge Caliber electronics, it can not only spoil your nerves, but also require significant repair costs. The most common problems in electrics are the desynchronization of electronic modules, the loss of digital communication between control units, the failure of the TPM tire pressure monitor. Over time, the regular alarm system may stop working. Due to sudden temperature changes, condensate forms of the ceiling, which flows into the ceiling light and disables its module, the contact rod. To protect yourself from possible problems, it is recommended to stick a sheet of foam, rubber, or felt on a ceiling, which will absorb the resulting condensate. It is also worth noting a weak generator with a large number of devices that consumes energy turned on at the same time. Its power is not enough. Because of this, the battery is quickly discharged. Generator resource 150 to 100,000 kilometers. Of the less significant trouble, one can note the unreliability of the illumination of instrument indicators becomes unusable closer to 200,000 kilometers, and the relay unit installed in the niche of the front left wing. If it malfunctions, there are interruptions in the electrical equipment of the passenger compartment. Also, malfunctions in the electronics can be caused by a frayed airbag cable on the steering wheel. Bottom line, Dodge Caliber is a versatile, roomy, comfortable, and at the same time inexpensive car with an extraordinary appearance, which is suitable for both men and women who love to attract attention. As for the reliability of this car, you should not expect any serious problems from it. The Variator may be an exception. The main thing is to find a live copy with a confirmed service history. If you are the owner of this car model, please describe the problems that you had to face during the operation of the car. Perhaps it is your review that will help readers of our site when choosing a car.